Hey guys, my name is Connor Gilpatrick, and I'm the host of the Gridiron Gilly Show, where I talk about high school football in East Texas, as well as interview coaches to talk about the game that we all love. If you like the show, please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share it with a friend. I hope you enjoy this episode of the Gridiron Gilly Show.
It's not just about building a championship football culture. It's about building a championship culture, period. About being a championship person.
A kid can never be loved too much. They can never have too many good influences on them.
And, pressure is not necessarily a bad thing.
When you're tired and that little voice in your head says you need to quit, can you push past that?
If you're successful 30% of the time at the plate, then you're pretty successful.
You want to get 1% better every day, and you're never a loser if you learn. So if we make a mistake, as long as we're fixing it, we're rolling on.
We tackle every day.
Get you your wisdom, get to work.
What's up, everybody? This is the Gridiron Gilly Show. I'm the host, Gridiron Gilly. Today I have Coach Heath Ragle, the Canton Eagles. Coach, how you doing?
Doing good. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Usually when I start this thing, I just ask coaches to introduce themselves. I don't know if actually, let me pause real quick. When I posted that I was going to interview you, I had a lot of people from Canton jumping on my page and liking my post and following me. So I was initially, we were just talking about this a few seconds ago. I was I don't know if I should interview anybody. I was breaking down my map and I was what do I consider East Texas? So I was Canton's a little too far for me. I don't know if I should interview anybody from Canton. But then I looked at the athletic page and stuff like that, and it seems like everybody's really fond of the program and the football team over there. So I was okay, well, I got to interview this guy then because they got a good thing going over there. I want to hear what he has to say about his school and his program in general. So, yeah. So if you don't mind, Coach, introduce yourself, talk about where you grew up at, when you knew you wanted to be a coach, and then if you had anybody influence you to be a coach.
Yeah, I think first of all, I pretty much grew up in Canton. I was born in Arkansas, but we moved to Canton I think when I was 5 years old. So I've been, I went all the way through school here in Canton. So born and raised, community I love. And throughout my coaching journey, I moved back here with my wife here. So my kids, were raised here. So just truly a blessing to be home. What we call home here forever. My parents are buried out here at the cemetery. One day I'll be buried out here. And just, it's just, to me, it's the best place to raise a family there is. I do think Canton is, the last line of East Texas. I think we are the furthest west school, in my opinion, probably that's, considered East Texas. It's not the Metroplex. And often, we get overlooked from East Texas or the Metroplex and kind of sandwiched in between there. So I appreciate you recognizing Canton, and our kids and stuff. I love sports growing up. I played every single sport. And I tell our kids all the time, I want them to play every sport. My kids, my personal kids, I got 3 kids. I got a 14-year-old, just turned 14. I got 11 and 9. They play everything. My wife grew up loving sports. She's actually from Van, which is one of our rivals down the road.
Mm-hmm.
But she's an East Texas girl too. So we love sports. I've always loved sports. I remember being with cousins, whatever. We were playing tournaments. We were just playing ball in the yard. My brother's less than 2 years younger than me, so we grew up. We're just 1 grade apart. So we were playing sports. If it was, we could get outside, we were outside. It didn't matter whether or what. We were playing sports all the time. So I knew I wanted to have something to do in the sports profession. Then the movie, funny story, the movie came out. Jerry Maguire, man, I thought I want to be a sports agent. Man, I could really make some money and still be involved in the sports. And I went to TJC. I was playing ball there. And I took my first business class the first semester, and I realized about a week into that, this is not for me. I don't want to be a coach. I want to be more involved. I don't really want to be in the business world. What I didn't understand at that time, I knew I want to be involved with sports. I want to coach. I loved the schematics, the training, everything that came with it. What I didn't really realize until you really started coaching was that it was a higher calling. I think that God called me to this role. I think that, I experienced that going to Mineola when I started my career and just having some influential people there with a Christ-like mindset with Coach Drennan. That's a Grant Saline, worked for him over there, and just seeing that and the guys we had on staff, it really changed my whole outlook of where God had called me to be. And that was in the coaching profession. So I feel fortunate where I started at. I had played for some great coaches. here. David Hughes was my head coach back when I was in school here. He used to be the DC at Stephen F. Austin. Richard Lay was our offensive coordinator. Derek Tyson, Shane Montgomery, just so many people along the path. One of ours, and probably the greatest coach I ever played for, was Pooh Welch. Long-time TJC, played like the ABA, probably the most famous TJC alum, from the older generation. Just passed away a couple of weeks ago, but just a great influential person in my life of how to drag the most out of people. I mean, he managed to get us to run through walls for him. So a lot of them really impacted my early development of wanting to be a coach. Then I was blessed when I got started my career in Mineola. I spent 5 years there. I was lucky enough to be the head baseball for 4 years, and that taught me a lot. I've really always been more of a football person. I grew up playing every sport, so I enjoyed that leadership of being in charge of something, try to get the best out of the kids. And then when I went to USIS to be the DC, there I worked for some great people. Stan Sowers, probably my greatest mentor, in this profession. Mr. Sowers was just always, to the dang flies. Mr. Sowers was just a direct, mentor for me, just in the everyday. He had coached, he had done that, and I had some great guys on staff, some older guys on staff. Coach Herman, I worked for him for 2 years as the head coach. When he left, I took the job there. I worked there for 5 years as the AD, head football, and then I returned back to Mineola, where one of my best friends, Luke Blackwell, was the head coach at Mineola, and I worked for him for 4 years there. And as DC there for him, we had some great teams, a great staff as well. I think a lot of the Mineola community, I got a lot of good friends that still coach over there, live in the community I keep up with. Then I was able to come back home and take the AD job here. I think you just look at, you see a lot of the influence you had in your life, or either coaches you worked with or people in those communities. I still keep up people in the USIS communities too, that were just, really great people that led me into a place now that, you're home and you love it.
Yes, sir. And that's another thing I was thinking about a while ago too, is I don't know. I know where Canton is. I know there's a lot of schools around there. I don't know the exact area, but there's a lot of good football up there in your area. Grand Salene's not too far. Pretty much between Canton and Tyler, there's a lot of good footballs north, south, and right there in the center of those towns.
Yep, for sure. We're in a spot. It's really weird when it comes to districts. Sometimes we go west, sometimes we go east. I guess when I first got the job, we were in there with Carthage and Center. So we're going as far there for the district games. And then the last alignment, they pushed us west towards Sunnyvale and Quinlan. And then this one, it's a combination. We push east, but then yet we're going to get Madisonville thrown in there. So Canton's kind of always in that limbo. We're surprised we went to Region 3, which was something different than in the past. But there's a lot of good football throughout East Texas. Our basketball districts, we're a smaller school 4A, but, we have Lindale, who's the biggest 4A in the state. They're in our basketball, baseball district. So, them Brownsboro. So we have some combination of some teams around here, that will play in football, like Athens now being in our football district. They've been in our basketball, baseball district for, numerous alignments now.
Yes, sir. And, you was talking about Mineola. That's a beautiful town, man. When I was in the police academy a few years ago, and one of the guys that was, you may know him. Do you know the name Joey Hooten?
I know. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's Tyler Fire Marshal right now.
Yes.
But he was actually in the police academy with me a few years ago in Kilgore College.
Yep. I believe Mr. Hooten, if Joey's one, Thomas Hooten, his son played for us, was a great kid, hard worker. Yes, I thought a lot of Thomas. He worked his tail off all the time for us. Just a great kid. Mineola is it's a really special place for me because I was a single man that I graduated in North Texas and came there, to have my first coaching job. And the guy that hired me, he'd actually got let go like a month after. I worked for Steve Wells for a couple of years, and Coach Drennan came in. But a lot of my best friends I ever had in the coaching profession started in Mineola. Me and Coach Blackwell worked together there with numerous guys that are still there at Mineola. But just the town, it's a great retirement community, so it really brings in a lot of different people there. But just a special place that that place will always hold.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a beautiful town. I love it there. My brother, they live in Winona, which is not too far from there. And I always tell him if I ever move up to that area so we can be close together, because he's like an hour and a half from me right now. Yeah. But I was like, I'm going to live in Mineola one day if I move up there.
Yep.
All righty. We talked about where you grew up at, which is Canton, and when you wanted to coach. Let's talk now about your staff, the nucleus of guys that you have around you, and then we can get into talking about your players as well on the offensive, defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think having a staff and having stability is so important, and that was one of the things that made our staffs in Mineola really good. And I was blessed and used to have a lot of the same guys back. But now here this year, we replaced one guy, and that was on the junior high level. Everybody else, my entire staff, on the boys' side was back, and our girls' side, I think, maybe changed by one coach there as well. So we really have the entire staff back. Well, that to me, that continuity, and when you've had success like we have, is a big deal. The kids know what to expect day in and day out. They know the routine. They're able to know what to expect every day. You know what our expectations of them are, which are very high of them. So just having that blessed there. I've had several guys. Coach Heineman, my DC, he's a rookie coach at Mineola with us for 4 years. Came along with me to Canton. So we've been working together now, going into I guess our 9th year together. So he knows what I'm thinking, how I'm going to answer stuff. How I'm going to handle this situation with the kid, how we're going to bring out the best in them. Because he's been with me so long, and they have several guys since I've been here. Now it's their 5th year for me being here. Coach Yudisky, my OC, I think he's the best OC in the state. I think we were blessed to have him. His kids had graduated. He got a senior daughter here, and he's had a couple that graduated through here. So been around the profession a long time. Blessed to have him. He was the OC at Forney for a long time. And then Coach Rush, who was the head coach at Forney for a long time. He's our O-line coach. So he's a rehire there, but still coaching like his. I think he's been at 43 years, and he's still having a great time, like it's year 3 for him. So I think he's just loving it. And just really a lot of good coaches, but I say better men. And like I talked about earlier, I think there is a higher purpose. And I think, the coaches that I have respect for in this business is not just winning or losing to me. Those things come and go. Right now we're winning a ton. I've coached long enough. I tell people all the time, if you haven't coached long enough to be on the losing side, you haven't coached very long, or been at enough places to do so. But the guys that are really making a lasting impact, I think that to me is, when those kids come back and they want to see you and talk to you, and you see them being a dad, a man that to be proud of, that's the higher calling. What are we doing outside of wins and losses? Those things will come and go. Like we won 10 games last year, but in 5 years from now, that doesn't matter to them guys. Are they a good dad? Are they a good husband? What is their profession? Canton, we're lucky. We have people in this community that pour into our kids that graduate. They're setting them up for success. College is not for everybody. There's so many things out there now for kids, and people in our community see that. They're getting them connected in those spaces there, and they come from our athletic program, kids we work with every day. And we said to our kids, man, you're the Navy SEALs of this school, man. You do things above and beyond what everybody else can't do. So you should be expected of that, out in the real world one day. So we're really blessed, there with the staff. You're talking about kids we got back. I think you started on offense. We broke the school record last year in points scored in a season there, and that was with you're talking about. You've had some great Canton offenses. I know you're probably a little bit unfamiliar with this area, but G.J. Keeney. He was a quarterback here for 3 years. He was 1 year at Gilmer, but 3 years here, his freshman, sophomore, junior year. And the furthest team at Canton's ever been was his junior year there when they went to the 4th round. And this team last year in the 2nd round scored more points than they did in 14 games. But they've had a lot of good offenses here in the past. They've been able to score points. So when you start with us, you start offensively, and you start with our quarterback, Court Ray. He's a junior. He's already got a Midwestern State offer. I think he's going to be able to get some even bigger offers from bigger schools. I think Midwestern State's a great plan, though, for him as well. But he's 6 foot, 180 pounds. Runs like a middle linebacker. I mean, zero fear. He's defensive newcomer of the year of the district as a freshman. As a sophomore, he's offensive player of the year. Threw for over 2,000. I think rushed for near 1,300, and I think he only played in 3 fourth quarters all season. So I made 4 fourth quarters. So really, you're talking about his stats are skewed, and I always tell our guys those stats are for losers. Winning the game is the most important part. And that's what makes him so special. I think is he doesn't care at the end of the game what his stats are. Did we win the game? How did we play? Did we play up to our standard or not? Our receiving core, I've been telling everybody, is probably our strongest group altogether. We got 3 guys returning that are 6'1" to 6'2". Casey French, Eli Boggs, Ethan Lewis, all are big time players for us, and they're all three in different grades, which I love. So we don't lose all of them at the same time. But they were impact players last year for us, and a really good offense. Then you talk about you got some young guys, and Carter Jackson's a freshman who's really came on the scene for us. We think he's going to be a next big time receiver for us, and you got some just reliable kids that will do whatever it takes for Jake Robinson. Our running back is really probably the deepest we've had in my 5 years here. Casey Kewen, most people around here will know this name. If they don't know it locally, they'll not know it real quick. Was a stud defensive end for us last year. Really tough to block, but he's our running back, about 180 pounds, 5'10", just tough kid. And we had a move-in kid, Lana Hamilton, 6'1", 194. That's a really good player. And we feel like our whole running back depth, our fifth guy coming in is our starting defensive tackle, Bryson Prox, and the people in this area and Coppin area know the Prox's names. There's been a lot. There's a Prox in Grand Saline. That's D1. There's been a lot of. We had a Chanston Prox here that went to Sam Houston State. There's a lot of Proxes that went D1. He's our starting defensive tackle, but he's also our fifth running back, and I think he weighs 262 pounds. And we looked up Jerome Bettis today to see, and he's got 10 pounds on Jerome Bettis. And Jerome Bettis, I think, has about 3 inches on him. But he can stand there and do a standing backflip with the shoulder pads and helmet on at 262. It's pretty impressive, and that's our fifth guy coming in. In our offensive line, we got 8 guys, that have played Friday nights and been on the field in significant moments for us. We only lost one senior there, so we really feel like, man, we got a plug-and-play system. We can rest some guys. We got Jackson Gatlin, O-line, that a lot of guys in East Texas are starting to figure out now. He's going to probably be a small school Division I type player, 6'3", 290, just a football playing Jesse. Then Keelan Woods, Rylan Broyles, Tyler Jascoula, Austin Scallions, Clyde Bilberry, just a host of them, Weston McLeod, that we feel like offensively we have a ton of depth to be really, really good this year again. Defensively, we feel like our depth is probably our biggest struggle right now. We got some really, I think, big-time players coming back. I think you start at free safety. You've got Carson Hawkins. I think he was just on the list for on the top of East Texas DBs. Had 7 interceptions last year as a junior at free safety. 6 foot, 6'1", rangy kid. Does a really good job in the run fits. And you got Branson Chambly, our middle linebacker, who was defensive newcomer of the year as well. That's a stud at middle linebacker and just a natural middle linebacker. And then you got Jaden Lopez, a safety that had 114, 115 tackles too. That's a stud. So we feel like, man, we got 3 really guys that are the centerpieces of it. Then you have those guys, Casey Kewen that's been there, Trey Martin that's play Friday nights, Lucas Hughes that's play Friday nights. So we feel like we got a lot of guys on defense that can contribute. We just got to build some depth. We got Casey French, he's really our only two-way starter at receiver and corner. His brother plays at ETBU for them. I think he has a chance to start in the slot for them this year. But Casey's 6'1". He's an outstanding corner and an outstanding receiver. So we feel like we got a lot of the pieces there to compete. Now we got a tough schedule. I tell people all the time, our schedule is much tougher than the past, which we knew that coming in. When you win 10 games, you got a lot of guys back. Not a lot of people are signing up necessarily to want to play. But we feel good about the ones we got. It's going to get us better in the preseason for sure.
Absolutely. And that's one thing I was going to talk about too, is whenever you was naming your offense, it sounded like you got a lot of depth and you didn't really lose a whole lot from last year. So the expectations are probably high in Canton.
Yeah, absolutely. We're building all new facilities. So, we're finishing up a 130-yard indoor, has AC in it. We're the only one around this area that has it. Our athletic facility, but a new high school, a new arena-style gym, media room, weight room, locker rooms. Really play a state-of-the-art facility. I think it'll rival anything in East Texas, and in my opinion, probably the best one in East Texas once we finish this. So we feel like, having success, Canton's an area that people are really leaving the Metroplex and they're kind of coming east, and we feel like we compete at every single sport. Our girls program is elite. It has been for a long time. So we feel like it's a great place for people to come. Our academics is outstanding, just the community in general. So we feel like really it's a hotbed for people to come in. And this area is probably, we see subdivisions going up all the time, that these numbers are probably about to explode in the next 10 years.
Yes, sir. So is your indoor facility, is it finished yet?
So we are, it's basically one big athletic facility. Our indoor probably could have been done, 4 months ago if it was just that. It's tied into the new gym. weight room, dressing rooms, media room. So really, everything in the indoor is finished. The turf's been sitting outside for 2 months, and they're kind of using it as a store ground for some of that. But we figure by January is our hope that we're into the whole new athletic facility by then. So we
Okay.
think that'll be hopefully starting our second half of district over there basketball.
Yes, sir. Because I've been asking coaches this year that I've been interviewing about the wet bulb and how it affects their practices and stuff. If you're not in there yet, then I'm assuming is affecting your practice. But once you get that indoor facility together, it probably won't be that troublesome for y'all.
That's what I told our kids and our parents. I said, we basically got to get through the first half of the season here. My eighth grade's last period, it's really affected them probably the most. We moved high school practices to early in the morning to make sure we got in, but our eighth grades we've used a local indoor baseball cage here, AO Athletics, and they've graciously let us come over there, I think 4 times, and probably today's probably going to be the 5th to practice them over there. But, we've had to switch a little bit how we do the high school, but after this year, we don't have to worry about that. We have the resources now to not lose that practice time, to not rearrange the perfect way we feel to do things here that works for us, in our culture and the way we do things. So, after this year, we should be good.
Yes, sir. And you've been a head coach for a few years now. You said you're returning just about every coach you had. I think you had a junior high coach leave, you said, and maybe someone on the girls' side. But you have hired several coaches, I'm sure, in your career as a coach. So my question for you is, what do you look for when you hire a coach?
That's a great question. And I've hired a lot between Eustis here and then coming Mineola and being part of a lot of the hiring there, and then coming back to here. And basically, when we got here, hire complete new staff. So I think the first thing for me is what type of person are they? And I'm going to do my research. Whoever you put on your reference sheets, not who I'm going to call. I'm going to call everybody around that spot. I want to know, what type of person are you? How do you treat kids? Is important to me. Do you respect the kids? Do you set up a relationship with the kids? Do you care for the kid outside of what can they do for you? Is it? I don't want it to be a transactional relationship. What can you do? For that kid to make him better, to help his life, to improve his life. So I'm going to figure out what type of person you are. And then after that, I'm going to figure out what type of coach you are. I feel like if you're a good person, I can mold you and help you, get you the resources around you to help develop your coaching abilities. But if you're just not a good person, not in it for the right reasons, it's not going to work with me here. And it's just not going to work for our community and what we want in our coaches. So that's why I feel very blessed to have the guys we do. I think they're in it for the right reasons here, or they wouldn't last here very long with me for sure.
Yes, sir. And then you mentioned your offensive coordinator a while ago, the defensive side of the ball. But this is a question someone asked me to ask last year, and I've asked just about every coach this question, because I've seen coaches on Friday nights, head coaches, who look like they're doing everything. They've got their hand in every offensive, defensive, special teams, play calling, all that. And then I've seen coaches who just sit back and watch. So what do you think your role is as the head coach AD at Canton?
I think my role, it's probably changed over the years. Probably my first couple of years here, I was probably more hands-on offensively. Now with Coach Yodiski, I feel very comfortable at where we're at there. So I'm really probably very hands-off there. Defensively, I've helped call a defense for 16 years of my career. So that's my passion. That's where my expertise would lie there. I've been able to relinquish a lot of that with Coach Heineman being with me now for the 9th year. So he handles so much of that stuff now. I really get to focus, a lot on the game planning process, which I enjoy. How to stop people, how we're doing things, the fundamentals of it. But I'm freed up this year. I don't coach a position, so I'm able to float and practice, which I really enjoy. Be able to walk around and see, where are our young kids, freshman JV, what are they doing over there in the O-line drills? But are them guys, where can they develop? What are we missing? So I like to think, man, I'm always coaching somebody and something, but I'm not having to be in charge of position and being controlled in one space or area. I can float around, write things down that I think will make us better practice layout. I think what makes us unique here is how we do things, how we approach every single day. The zero complacency that I'm on the kids about, our effort, our attitude, our toughness. Those are things that we value here as our values. The amount of work our kids put in during the summer and leading up to the summer, I think is really what has changed our program for the better. Is our kids are very invested, and their parents are invested. So you see those things. I get to spend more time on that type of stuff than I do really, trying to micromanage coaches and let them develop and grow. And I feel like we got the right ones here to do so.
Let's talk about last year real quick, because I looked at your schedule from last year. You made it to the second round. I don't even know what the rounds are called. I know the regional semifinal, the regional, what is it, area, by district area?
Area for our second round, yes, sir.
Okay, so made it to the second round, the area round, to play Pleasant Grove. But your district, you had Sunnyvale, who was a good team, Canton, and all these other schools I've never even heard of: Ford, Ferris, Wills Point, and Kemp. I don't even know. I know where Wills Point is, but those other three, got no idea what they're about or where they're even at. But you made it to the second round nonetheless, and you played Pleasant Grove, a really good team in East Texas, Northeast Texas. This year, you're in a completely different district. You've got Athens, who's a solid program, Van, another solid program right down the road from you, Canton, Madisonville, Rusk, and Brownsboro. That's in the order that the Dave Campbell's experts have put it in for the expectations for this year. And I looked up the records of the top four: Athens, Van, Canton, and Madisonville. All four of those teams had a good season last year. So I know Sunnyvale had a good year last year, but in my opinion, I'd say this district here is probably tougher pound for pound. So what are your expectations?
I think expectations stay the same for us. We want to play. I talked to kids today about it. Not necessarily about who we play, but how we play. Sometimes you're playing teams that are weaker, and really, do we live up to our standard or not? Sometimes you're going to play teams that are really good. I think last year, Quinlan Ford was a good team. I think when we beat them, they had maybe only lost one loss, 2-loss team or something at that point. When we beat them, made them a 2-loss team. They were a good program, and of course, Caddo Mills. Was a big win for us in the playoffs. And the PG game was a unique one because, we had to go to Pleasant Grove, because they wouldn't play us in a neutral spot, basically. We ended up losing the flips. We went to Pleasant Grove, and it was really a 21-7 halftime score. And we gave them 14 points, in the first 2 minutes of the game, just on a couple blunders there that, hopefully we'll grow from. So I felt like we were very battle tested, with some of those guys who played at Sunnyvale had a really good program. And I think that game was a 3-point game at halftime. And we were playing our third and fourth corner, all game. So it really got away from us late, but that's not taking anything away from them. They're a really good program. But this year's district's going to provide some really tough competition. Van, we know Canton Van's rivalry, and they kicked our tails my first 2 years over here. We had that rivalry game there, and they whooped us at pretty much every level there, but one. So I think that game being the first game at district is really going to set the tempo. I think Van probably has the best offensive line every year in the state. I mean, they are huge kids. They're really good up front. They coach really well in the O line. So that's going to be a huge test. And the quarterback's a really good player as well. Very similar to our quarterback, a run, throw guy, do a little bit of everything there. So that's going to be a big test for us. We know Brownsboro and Russ. We've played them in the past. Russ, we especially have for 4 years. We've had some great games with Russ. Russ and Brownsboro are very athletic. And that's the thing for us is generally Canton kids in general, we're not the most athletic. We know that that's not necessarily our skill set, but we are disciplined, we are tough, and our kids are very coachable. So we say those things help separate us, in day-to-day of what we do with teams maybe that are really athletic. So we got to do really well. Their Coach Who's taking over Brownsboro, and those can do a really good job there. Coach Wells was just in his second year now at Rusk there too, and you can see them improving as they were going. Then you start talking Madisonville in there. They're one of the fastest teams in the state. If you go look every year state trap meet, Madisonville's name's going to be somewhere in there competing for a medal at the state trap meet, and their times leading up to that are always incredible. So we're not familiar with them because we've never played them in any sport, and they were kind of the wild card, and especially we're going there to their place. So that's going to be a really tough game for us. It's just an uncertain opponent. We know where they're good at is with team speed, and that's usually where we're not as skilled at. So we're going to be really good that night and really coachable, and we're going to have a good game plan. And of course, Athens, had a huge run last year. We see them in basketball all the time. Their athletes are some of the best in East Texas. Especially at the 4A D2 level, probably top 3 athletes they got in the area there. I think they very much rival the PG Carthage Skill Kids type athletes they have, and they got a really good crew coming back. And that's game 10. We played Sunnyvale the last 2 years for the district title. We were 9-0 last year playing Sunnyvale, and they beat us here to win it. And the year before, we were 8-1, and they beat us at their place in a good game to win district. So we'd love to be back in that place, but there's a lot of football to play before then. We do feel like, we're playing Jacksonville this week, who's an athletic team, and some of this is strategic. Once you know your district, you want to play some athletic teams. We scrimmage Tyler Chapel Hill, very athletic team, obviously. There, and then we got Commerce at week 2, who's probably a top 5 3A team, if not even better. Then we got a rematch with Caddo Mills, which is, I think, one of the best coach teams around there. And, of course, we got a Mount Vernon team that Coach McLean does a great job over there. They're scrappy as all get out. I'm familiar with them in Mineola. We lost a couple heartbreakers to Coach Bryles when he was there, and Coach Willard when they were there. They beat us in a close one in the 3rd round there that year. So the Mount Vernon kids are tough and they're coached well, so that's going to be good. And then our Highway 64 rivalry with Wills Point over here is, we went 1-1 last 2 years there. So a lot of good preseason games to get us ready for that district. So ought to be a fun ride. I say it's a whole lot of fun for the spectators. I'd rather win 50-0 and go on and enjoy my time, but there's some fun games for fans this year.
Yes, sir. And I have your non-district schedule wrote down too, because that's what I was going to say. Commerce, I know they had a good year last year. Caddo Mills, you played them in the playoffs, right? The first round?
Yes, sir. Correct.
Okay, so they were probably a good team as well.
Yes.
Mount Vernon, I know what they're about. They got a good coach. I feel like I think they got 4th in their district last year, but I think they're on the up and up. I really do.
Yeah, for sure.
And they've been consistent through it. Like whenever Coach Bryles was there, and then now McLean's there. He's done a good job with the guys last year.
Yeah, they're very tough kids, very coachable kids. He's done a really good job there, in that transition. I know.
I told Coach yesterday that I interviewed, I said, I'm not going to ask, because I asked you about the expectation a while ago. I said, I'm not going to ask this question because I see coaches get interviewed all the time and they say, what's your expectations for this year? And I hate that question because I don't expect you to tell me, we'll go 1-9, and,
Right.
I don't expect you to tell me that, which I don't think you're going to do that. I think you're going to be in the playoffs this year and have a good season. But I was like, I'm going to try to stay away from asking questions like that because I know even if a coach is like, yeah, we're not going to be good, he's not going to tell me that.
Correct.
At least not on the air. But, okay, so, we've talked about a lot so far, and some of the things that I had written down last we've already talked about as well. You mentioned the girls' side of the Canton Athletic program was pretty solid. People were coming east from the Metroplex area. But let's talk about Canton Athletics as a whole since you are the athletic director. I don't know what all sports you have, but talk about the athletic program as a whole, the boys and girls side.
We feel like we have a really strong program. Every year, we'll have at least some individuals in cross country going to the state meet in the fall. Our volleyball program, I think my first year we were in the regional tournament there. I think either last year or year before we've lost to Sunnyvale a couple times close and almost had them beat there in the second round. So we've been in the second round numerous times in volleyball. Of course, the regional. There, our basketball program, we were in the regional finals, I think 3 years ago with our girls basketball. Our boys was in the regional semifinals 2 years ago. It's been I said Canton, even in my time, it's been a very perennial basketball school with also a good baseball school in the past as well. But now it's kind of taken off too. Our girls softball team's been in the state semifinals 3 years ago, the regional finals 2 years ago. So we've been really good on the softball side. As well. So I think you start really getting into those primary big sports. People know usually you play Canton, you're going to be pretty good. I don't know if you know or not, but we just had Ace Reese from Canton was a 1st round draft pick. The 21st pick to the Mariners. And so Ace played for us several years ago. His younger brother's on our baseball program. Here's a sophomore. So, we're extremely proud. We've had guys here that's Colton Brewer that played, a decade in the bigs. We've had a lot of kids come through here, playing at the next level. We still got a lot of softball players that are either playing JUCO. We have 2 girls that are playing SFA that started for them. So, we feel like we're producing kids that can go play at the next level, and most importantly, producing really good kids that are going to be good adults. But we feel like Canton Athletics, we want to be competitive in everything we do. I didn't sign up to be the AD to come and just say, oh, we're bad at this and we're only going to be good at football. I think everybody that knows me knows that's not the case. I do care about every sport. And how we do well. And I don't think that's the case. Honestly, a lot of ADs, I think it's just how do we do at football? And we don't worry about everything else. But I feel like when you play Canton, we're trying to be really good at everything. I think that's what we owe to our kids and our community that want to play multiple sports. And we encourage our kids to play multiple sports if they can help play them. We want them to play them. We still have that old school 2A, like the Joaquins of the world. Like we need our best players to play everything, and so we encourage our kids to do so.
Yes, sir. And I interviewed Monster, their head coach, in the off season, and he was telling me, he was like, my passion's football. That's where I'm passionate at, but I don't want to be just good at football. I want to be good at all sports.
Yep.
And he was telling me, and I remember they won state in 17 in football, but they won it in basketball and baseball that same year too. I don't know if it was I forgot if it was the calendar year or all in the same school year, but they won state in all three of those sports on the boys' side. So that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, very impressive. Josh Willer, who's our OC over there, and his son's played for him. He's an Edgewood boy originally, and I played against Josh back in the day, but Josh was a Mineola coach after I had left there. So we have a lot of common friends there, and that's a really good program. And they kind of ran that wall of just great kids playing every sport and winning, at a high level.
Yes, sir. A few more questions, and then we'll be done. This might be the quickest one I've had this year. Well, I don't know, because we're about 35 minutes in right now. But your advice to young coaches?
I think first of all, treat the kids like you'd want your own son treated. I'm very hard on my kids. Anybody will tell you that right there. But I believe that treat those kids like you want to be treated. So if you enter this profession, man, don't enter for the glory of your own name or whatever. What are you doing to make that kid's life better? There's the Mineola community, the Eustis community, the Canton community. They're three different communities. Each community's kids are going to come from a different background and different layout. I think know what that community's background is and what you need, man. There's just some kids. I tell you, our coach all the time, find that kid that isn't the star on Friday nights. Find that kid that doesn't even get in hardly at the game. Encourage him. See what is his aspirations in life. What does he want to do outside of this? And talk to them about that. I think that's what you want to be in this profession for, man. Everybody wants the glory of Friday nights and be the guy that makes the winning touchdown, does whatever. But there's just a higher purpose to this profession. Unfortunately, I feel like this profession, less people are coming in year out. My son is one. I'm talking since he could talk. He's going to be a coach. That's all he's known. He's 14 now, and he's never once said anything else he wants to do besides be a coach. And I think he gets to see in the field house, our coaches are mentors to him. He's lived in these field houses growing up, like so many coaches' sons have. But this profession is not bringing enough coaches out anymore. I think that's a lot to do with the state and the mandates they have. It's tougher now to get a CDL. We have more trainings than we ever do. You're under a microscope more than ever. Social media now, everybody knows the best, for your program. So it's made it tougher to get people out. But we need more people in this profession. We need more people that care about kids, that are making a difference in their lives. And I think, we need communities in Canton. We're blessed to have that. Communities to understand that there is a higher purpose than just winning and losing to athletics. And I think when you're in those right communities like that, they do understand that.
Absolutely. And you've said it a few times throughout this interview. It's a higher calling. That's exactly what it is.
Yes. I always tell our coaches all the time, man, it's just, whether it's a positive or a negative comment, man, try to finish always with the positive, because those kids will remember those comments the rest of your life, and the difference you made or didn't make. I know I don't want to stand for the Lord one day and him say, well, what did you do to help? Did you just worry about winning games, losing games? And that's just not what we're going to do.
Absolutely. I like that answer. All right, a few more questions. These ones don't require too much thought, I don't think, but you never know.
Yeah.
But the best athlete that you have played against or coached against?
Ooh, man. I'll go for the ones that I've coached. I've coached two of them that are probably the best I've ever coached. In Mineola, Dawson Pendergrass, who's a starting running back at Baylor right now. Dawson Pendergrass and Travion Sneed, Trey Sneed. They were both on our Mineola team. Trey was a senior. Dawson was a sophomore. When Mount Vernon beat us 12-7 in the COVID year in the third round, and we really felt like we had a chance to win it all. Unfortunately, we just kind of turned it over a few times there and didn't get the job done. But both were incredible. Dawson was a kid leading up to ninth grade. He's in the gym and just a tall, redhead, curly-haired kid. You wouldn't pick him out walking in Walmart as being an unreal athlete, but could go tomahawk jamming as incoming ninth grader. And Trey Sneed was 6'1", 233 as a senior, and looked like, his body looked like he was playing in the NFL already. And he went to SMU to play middle linebacker for them and kind of went through some coaching changes between there. in kind of his college career. But two incredible athletes. But what I thought really separated them, not only his athleticism was incredible, but just they were ultra competitive. Ultra competitive. It didn't matter what you were doing. Those two wanted to win. And they would do whatever it took to try to win the game, to have a good practice, to prepare for those things there. But those two were special. Now, the best one I ever played against was a guy named DeBrian Blanton from Forney. I always tell people this. DeBrian went to OU to play football and track. They lost in the state finals with DeBrian to LaGrange back in 02 maybe. But DeBrian ended up being a professional runner there. And I think he was the 60-meter world record holder for a long time. I won the Big 12 in the 100. But I always said if he would have kept playing football, I definitely think he'd probably been a first-round draft pick. I think after his freshman year at OU, he ended up just going the straight track route, but just an incredible athlete. But I've seen a lot. I've seen Matthew Stafford. I'm old now. I'm in my 21st year, so I've seen Matthew Stafford play there. I mean, he was an incredible player. I've seen Sergio Kendall play. So I've seen some really incredible players over the years. Man, I tell you what, though, probably one of the best ones we played with recently was a center quarterback a few years back. I said he's the Vince Young of East Texas football. I thought he was so underrated. I think he ended up going to Lamar. I don't know in 2 years if we ever got him on the ground. He might have stepped out of bounds or he was stepping in the end zone, but he was like 6'4". He played for Coach Meeks over there. He was absolutely incredible. Probably one of the most underrated players I've ever seen. It totally made us look we're the little kids playing with Dad out in the yard. He's just stiff arming and just look like he's just jogging, just making us, and we're giving our best effort. And we just couldn't get him on the ground.
Yes, sir. Good. I wish I could remember that guy's name, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yes.
You've already talked about your rivalry being Van. Talked about the wet bulb. Let's talk about the toughest place to play at, whether it be from Canton or your time at Eustis or Mineola. What's the toughest environment to play in, you think?
Yeah, I don't know that anything. Football environments are really different because you're so far removed from the other crowd. It's different than a basketball game where you're in a little gym. Which environments can be tough. I feel like the crowds are always so far removed from each other. The environment, probably doesn't affect us a whole lot. I think it's more about how your dressing facilities. Do you have AC in the dressing room? We're in Eustis. We played in some facilities, on the road that were not very good. You're going over there playing in August and there's no AC in the locker room. And you're like, oh my goodness, it's better to sit outside. I think those were usually the toughest places to play at. Quinlan was always tough to play at because it was, now everybody plays on turf, at our level, and you're playing on a grass field for the first time, things like that. We look across the sideline, you can't see the other sideline because the hill's so big. Things like that were different, more so than the crowd there. I think, it's really the rivalry games, your Van, your Athens, games like that make the environment really cool. Our game versus Sunnyvale last year, I think Sunnyvale people will say it was pretty spectacular because it was back and forth through the first half. But there was not. I mean, it was 5 rows deep of people standing on the fence line, parked several, probably a mile and a half down the road trying to get into the stadium because we were 9-0 at that time. I think they were 8-1, only lost to PG there. So it was just probably one of the coolest environments we played in recently. Was just there at our own place.
I used to ask the best football movie, but I got the same answer every time. And since I started asking the best sports movie, I still get the same answer. Yeah. But in your opinion, what's the best sports movie there is?
Well, I don't know what everybody else is. I'm going to Remember the Titans guy. I figured that's probably most of that. Me and my son love that one. I just think it's a really cool movie and just, kind of draws in so much of the past history of how things used to be and just done it in a really cool way.
Well, whenever I say sports, like I always gravitate towards football too. Like I'm like football movies because I've seen a lot of them. But I'm like also one. I don't think one movie I've never heard anyone say that's a really good football movie. I just watched it the other day. Radio.
Radio's another good one. And baseball ones, the old Ricky Vaughn, Roger Dorn, Major Leagues were just a classic. Baseball movie growing up too. But yes, Radio is a really good one as well.
The last question I have for you. Suppose, and I don't know if I will because Canton is over 2 hours from me, but suppose somebody listens to this and says, I want to go to Canton and watch them play some football this year. I'm assuming you got about 5 home games, but somebody wants to come to Canton and watch y'all play some football this year. Where's a good spot to eat at in Canton?
Whoo, man, I don't make all my camp. You can pick. So first Monday's here in Canton, so it's a huge area that people travel to come to First Monday here. So you have a lot. I'm a Dairy Palace and Jerry's Pizza guy.
I like Dairy
So I grew up
Palace.
from here. Dairy Palace right there off the interstate. They have everything to offer there. And then I think the best pizza around is Jerry's Pizza here, which is a retired baseball coach in the community. It's his family's pizza joint. And so those are the Ragles favorites for, 35 years here. So that's my kids' go-tos. My son wants Jerry's Pizza after every Sunday church, and Dairy Palace used to be after the game. The kids all went to Dairy Palace, after the game on a Friday night. So I would say anybody you're coming to a game here, stop by one of them too. I don't think you'll be disappointed at all.
Absolutely. I ain't had that pizza place, but I've had Dairy Palace just about every time I get hungry or need to get gas when I'm headed to Dallas. Dairy Palace is where I'll stop and get lunch at.
Yes, perfect. Jerry's Pizza is just right across the street. So it's right there by that McDonald's. It's just a really good spot to eat as well.
Yes, sir. Awesome. Well, 45 minutes. That wraps it up, Coach. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you letting me talk to you. I know we had some issues at first, but I'm glad we were able to fix the technology aspect of it. But I appreciate you letting me talk to you about your program and your life and career as a coach. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I thank you, Connor, for reaching out, man. Anytime we talk about our kids in Canton, just how blessed we are, I think it's a big deal to promote it. And like I said, we have the best community and the best kids around, in my opinion. So I'm more than happy to talk about it, and I appreciate you interviewing us.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Well, I probably won't have to edit much of this, but I'm not good with technology. I just started pilfering around with it and watching videos. I'm learning how to do all this stuff. And this platform's easy to work with, but the uploading and stuff like that, sometimes on this old computer, it takes forever. But I'm going to try to have it up today. So if I get it up, I'll shoot you a message. I'll shoot the link to it, okay?
Sounds good, man. I had a fly bothering me the whole time here. One fly the whole time. I'm like, get away. I'm over here karate chopping.
No, you're fine. I'm sure people find entertainment in that. Well, God bless you, man. I appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing what y'all do this year. Thank you for listening to the Gridiron Gilly Show. Remember, it's more than just a game, and I'll see y'all next time.
Football.